Come experience a part of history in the beautiful town square of Bentonville, Arkansas. At the Walmart Museum, you can discover Sam Walton's beginnings as an American leader and the store that paved the way for Walmart's role in helping people save money and live better. With interactive displays, retro souvenirs, and the Spark Cafe, Walton's Five and Dime is a little slice of Americana. Come celebrate the cornerstone of Bentonville's past, present, and future.
Welcome, I'm Dana Schlegenhaft, and thanks for joining us on Downtown Now. The 30-minute show you're about to watch is part of a storytelling project by the nonprofit Downtown Bentonville Incorporated. The story of Bentonville's past, present, and future includes thousands of dedicated community members over the years, each doing their part to improve our city. We all play a role, and if you're going to tell the story of our city, the Walton family plays a major role in that story. The story of our city includes the founding of Walmart in 1962 by Sam Walton. Years later, that story includes investments in downtown Bentonville, throughout our region, state, and beyond by a new generation of the Walton family. And we spoke with one member of that next generation in an hour-long interview right here in downtown Bentonville. Our interview with Steuart Walton has three parts: Bentonville's past, present, and future. There are tough questions, and there are fun moments and reminiscing. It's a conversation that we believe will give you an authentic look into someone who lives, invests, works, cycles, flies, and more right here in Bentonville. Simply put, this is his home. Here's part one of our interview, focusing on Bentonville's past. Joining me now is Steuart Walton.
Hello, Dana.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Now we're, I would say, old acquaintances. We went to high school
Friends.
together.
Let's go with friends.
We'll go with friends. Okay. We went to high school together, so full disclosure, class of 99 here in Bentonville.
Yep.
And I remember you as a very typical Bentonville kid. This is home.
Mm-hmm.
And I see you now as a community leader, an investor, someone that's into cycling, aviation. I wanted to say you fly over my house sometimes. It's very low. But we do spot you up there from time to time.
I can avoid it if you point it out to me.
We'll just wave at you. But I want to talk about growing up in Bentonville.
Yeah.
We're here on the Bentonville Square.
Yes, we are.
I remember very distinctly your mom working at the corner bookstore.
Yes.
I can
right over here and right over there.
Yep. Your dad at Arvest.
Yes.
So this is home and very familiar to you. Let's just talk about experiences living in Bentonville, growing up in Bentonville.
Well, Bentonville is an amazing town, first off. It's the county seat. It's very typical, I think, for county seats in this part of the country where you have a square like this and the courthouse on the county square. And I think that's a wonderful tradition to kind of continue and to promote and to acknowledge and celebrate here in Bentonville. And so going way, way back, you know, my dad was always very enthusiastic about the town square, about the businesses that happen around the town square, bringing us up here. There used to be a restaurant over here that we'd go eat at on Saturday mornings, and they had a pinball machine in the back and a Pac-Man, and you know, sometimes we got to play and sometimes we didn't. But I remember coming up to the square from my earliest days. We lived within walking distance. My parents still lived there, and it was just kind of the center of the town. And growing up here, you know, I think at one point I'd been to every single school in the Bentonville School District.
Which weren't that many compared to these days.
Yeah, no, far fewer than what we have today. But I was kind of growing up as Bentonville was really starting to kind of accelerate in its growth. I think when we graduated, we had about, 13,000 people in town.
Yeah,
Couple of stoplights, not that many. Far fewer again Stoplights in schools have proliferated here in Bentonville, along with a lot of other things.
Restaurants,
Restaurants, yes. But no, I think growing up in Bentonville, it's kind of this really interesting intersection of Midwest meets South, of small versus worldly, of outdoor opportunity, but a sort of relatively intimate landscape, and just kind of nestled up here in what's historically been a very poor part of Arkansas. But over the last several decades, with some of the success of the companies here and the University of Arkansas also, I think, fueling some growth, the region has become more and more prosperous. And one of the things that I've found throughout work is that as you find things that work for you, as you find things that are being successful, you've got to double click on that, you've got to double down on that, and that can lead to further success. And that further success all of a sudden opens up a whole different realm of opportunities for you. And so when I think about Bentonville from like my earliest memories here, at My Friends and Me preschool over there with Mike Abb and Tanner Bedwell and all those characters.
I know them well, yes. Hey Mike, hey Tanner.
Yeah. So my earliest days to where Bentonville is now, Bentonville has continued to actually do what works, hopefully stop doing what doesn't work. And as we've become more successful, we've seen opportunity open up. And you could kind of take that example and drill into any of the areas that Bentonville's seen some of this exponential growth, and that same idea applies, where you never know what you're going to see in 5 years' time, but if you keep building towards it, if you keep working towards it, and then when you get there, what you do see will be far different than what you saw 5 years ago.
I'm going to go back to growing up in Bentonville. So speaking of some of our friends from high school, I called a few people and asked them, what are your memories of Steuart in high school? Of course, we get the great guy, he was just kind of fit in with the crowd. We were all buddies. And then something really stood out to everyone. And it must have made such an impression on us as children that you didn't have a television in your house. And every person that I call, they led with he didn't have a TV growing up. Is that true? And how did that affect you as a child and potentially as an adult now?
It's mostly true.
Okay. Did you sneak some TV in?
Well, I did, down at my grandmother's.
Okay.
And I think that was actually a strategic sort of decision, very, very wise decision maybe by my parents, which sort of sent us down to her house whenever we wanted to watch television. But no, we didn't have a TV growing up until well into high school for me. But what we did have is my mom ran the corner bookstore, and she's one of the most voracious readers I've ever encountered, and reads books and books and books still. And some of that rubbed off on me. I love reading, but I'm not as dedicated to the books that I get into. I start books and stop books and pick them up again. But I've read some good books lately. But I don't know. I think that pushed us outside, not having a TV. I was an Eagle Scout. I was a big enthusiast for canoeing and camping. So I think it certainly had an impact, but it didn't keep me from having a great experience of childhood. I probably wasn't as with it on the pop culture references at the lunch table.
I took care of that for both of us.
Right.
I still remember going in your mom's bookstore, in the corner bookstore, and I could tell you to this day at 41 exactly where the Babysitter Club books were, all the way back to the right. So that was somewhere that a lot of us, I think, growing up, found a lot of value in that little escape right here in this area. And I want to talk about downtown. I work with Downtown Bentonville Inc., and we're a nonprofit in this community, and we do events like Farmers Market and First Friday. So events that enrich this downtown, bring the community together. That was something we experienced in the past growing up. We had Sugar Creek Days.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, how the downtown has grown in a way that I think is authentic to our past. I mean, we still gather, just in a different way.
Yeah. And it goes way back, before Sugar Creek Days. There's some wonderful old photos of people coming into Bentonville for the market or for church or for whatever, from, some of Bentonville's earliest days. And it would be to come together, to have community, trade, barter probably. Back then, I don't know, maybe they just traded. I think that sense of community is something that is very much in the DNA of Bentonville and this part of the country in general. And, being so culturally integrated, that would be something that, I don't think you'd be very successful if you tried to change it. Not that anybody would want to. It's an incredibly attractive aspect to living here, I think. There was a guy that I was talking to over the weekend from San Francisco, and he told me, I take 4 mountain bike trips a year. I go to Moab once, I go to Whistler once, and I go to Bentonville twice. I said, that's really interesting. Why do you come to Bentonville twice? And he said, I smile more in Bentonville. And I was like, that's really interesting. Why do you think that is? Because, Moab and Whistler are extraordinary. One is sort of the birthplace of downhill kind of mountain biking and has more sort of extreme mountain biking opportunities than anywhere else. That's Whistler. Moab is, like as scenic as any place in the entire globe. And yet he comes to Bentonville twice. And I said, well, okay, so you smile more in Bentonville. Why do you do that? And he said, honestly, it's because of the community here. It's because of the people that I see, the people that I talk to on the trail. It's the people that I meet at the hub. It's the people that I meet over at the Meteor Cafe. And we were actually sitting at the Meteor Cafe. And, there was a group ride that went out while we were talking. And a couple people came in and got a beer. And that sense of community permeates our town. And it is maybe most evident here in the downtown area. But you see it popping up all around too, in the trails, the restaurants, the churches. It's pretty impressive to see how interconnected the community spirit is in Bentonville. And here's something else I'll tell you that's interesting. 64% of the people in Bentonville were not born in Arkansas. So I think that speaks to how strong community is as a cultural element and how strong a cultural element is in a town. And even though you've got a majority of people that are living in this town that haven't been born in Arkansas, which I think is fantastic and very exciting in so many different ways, they're still impacted, and the sense of community still resonates with them in a strong way. And I always think you'll have people that come here from, say, California. My guess, and I don't think this is just specific to Bentonville, I think this is just about culture generally, but my guess is those people that move here from California will change far more because of the culture here than they will change the culture here.
You think? Do you think that it's so ingrained in what Bentonville is?
I do.
I
think it's that. I think culture is that powerful. Here's another example. You go out to Walmart today, and the culture is absolutely recognizable from where it was 40 years ago. But there's not a person out there, maybe one or two, but if there are, there's only a few. The 40-year plus, of which we have some, and it's just kind of an incredible thing in and of itself. But you go out to Walmart, and less than 0.01% of the people out there would have been here 40 years ago, but the culture is 100% recognizable. And that just, to me, shows the power of culture. And so when you talk about community, and I'm sure the people 100 years ago that were gathering on this square felt a similar sense of community, I think the people that are moving here today, the people that will raise families here tomorrow, and the people that will gather on this square in 100 years' time will almost certainly have that same sense of community in their culture because it's part of who we are.
Sounds like a new city slogan. I smile more in Bentonville.
I'm smiling right now.
So you brought up Walmart, and I need to ask about your grandfather.
Sure.
So back in the 80s and 90s, if you grew up in Bentonville, Steuart's grandfather drove around in a very iconic pickup truck that you see a lot in front of the Walmart
It's very
Museum.
pedestrian pickup. It's become iconic.
Now,
yeah.
yes. Back at the time, yes, not so much. I just want to hear a memory that you have of your grandfather, something that's really resonated with you through the years.
I have a lot of memories, even though he passed away when I was 11. But you know, some of the most amazing things that I've experienced or kind of understood from him have actually come since he's passed away in his book. There's just some amazing stories and lessons and reflections in his book. And one of the things that we did at our family meetings was we took 2 chapters at a time, and my dad and his siblings kind of reflected on the stories, you know, as they remembered them that were written in the book. And that was a really kind of moving and incredibly informational, even for me, kind of experience of learning about who he was and how he thought and how much just passion and energy and sort of you know, vision that he had, and how, you know, lovable he was as well. But I guess one memory I have, and it's a pretty early one, is that we would go out and hunt over in Gentry on Lloyd Peterson's farms out there. And Lloyd would feed the quail, so they were fat and they couldn't fly very well. And
Seems like that gave you an unfair advantage.
I wasn't shooting, but that's probably not a misstatement, or that's probably correct. Maybe I should say. But anyway, we were driving a later truck, still very pedestrian truck, out there, and it was one of these old Fords that, you know, the speedometer, I think it started at like 10 miles an hour. There wasn't anything below that. And I was kind of a perceptive kid, and I was sitting on Granddad's lap, and he's driving. I was like, "Granddad, can you go 5 miles an hour?" And I remember him saying, "Well, I don't know. It's not on the speedometer." And I was like, "Why isn't it on the speedometer?" And he's like, "Well, I just don't think you can go 5 miles an hour. I just don't think it's possible." And like, I remember that, I don't know why I remember that story as a kid, but sort of now that I've been older and read more about him and understood more about his personality and the company, I think that was just kind of like how he was. Like, he was full throttle all the time. He'd be up, first one in the office, you know, work, hunt, play tennis, you know, every day was full, every day was nonstop. He was, I think, very much fueled by his interactions with people, and I don't think he ever slowed down. I mean, not until the very end, and even then, not really. But I do remember hunting with him. I do remember flying with him as a kid, and yeah, I wish I had more memories, but I do treasure the ones I have.
Part 2 and 3 of our interview will air right here next Saturday, same time and channel. You can also follow us on Facebook at Downtown Bentonville for more on our conversation with Steuart Walton. Up next, 3,200 hours. That's how long it takes to meticulously string holiday lights on the Bentonville Square. We'll have more on the team behind that big effort next.
Come experience a part of history in the beautiful town square of Bentonville, Arkansas. At the Walmart Museum, you can discover Sam Walton's beginnings as an American leader and the store that paved the way for Walmart's role in helping people save money and live better. With interactive displays, retro souvenirs, and the Spark Cafe, Walton's Five and Dime is a little slice of Americana. Come celebrate the cornerstone of Bentonville's past, present, and future.
It's going to be quite a scene.
Second time ever in the United States, and it's in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
The amount of sound will be deafening.
It'll be unlike anything that anyone has ever seen in Northwest Arkansas.
Make the Scott Family Amazeum in Bentonville your destination for fun, fun, fun. With over 50,000 square feet of interactive exhibits and ample space outdoors for free-range play, the Amazeum is your place to create amazing experiences for the entire family. It's a hit with families and children of all ages. Plan your visit at amazeum.org.
Lighting of the square is one of our favorite Bentonville traditions, and each year it gets bigger, better, and brighter. Bentonville Mayor Stephanie Orman gives us an inside look at the team behind the magical holiday lights.
Holiday lights illuminate the Bentonville Square until January 1st, but the work leading up to the lighting on the square began months ago. Lighting the square kicks off each year with a flip of the switch and a crowd of thousands.
3, 2, 1!
But you may not know, lighting of the square is the end result of hours and hours of labor from a dedicated Parks and Recreation crew.
We have about 35 full-time parks maintenance staff that all touch the project. They're all amazing. They're all passionate about it. It's a labor of love.
A labor of love that takes approximately 3,200 hours of work. Parks and Recreation Director David Wright says it's all about bringing families downtown, creating memories, and seeing smiling faces.
And you watch how everybody rolls their sleeves up in September, and they work on this for months until the night we turn the lights on. You see the enjoyment that we all get by providing this to our citizens.
Wright says every bulb in the 35 miles of holiday lights illuminating the square is meticulously placed with the community in mind.
When we talk about the why, we talk about how many people does this really impact? What does this mean to our community? What does it mean to downtown? And it's really easy to see that when you come through on a random off night, maybe in the middle of the week, and you see how many people this has brought out of their homes into our community, into our downtown, it's really easy to understand the benefits that it provides to our citizens.
Thanks to Mayor Orman for that story. Now here's a special Christmas-themed look back at lighting of the square.
'Twas the month before Christmas, and all through the city, all the buildings are festive and vibrant and pretty. Families roll in from near and far, converging downtown by bike and by car, crowding the square for one single reason: the annual launch of the holiday season. Mayor Orman stands ready to flip on the lever, powering 35 miles of lights, a giant endeavor. At 6 o'clock sharp, as tradition says it must be, she'll swiftly light the square and the big Christmas tree. Entertainers are everywhere doing their thing. Some perform tricks, some beautifully sing. Skaters circle round the Lawrence Plaza rink, while lights twinkle paired with music in sync. At the Walmart Museum, Santa sits in his sleigh as children sip cocoa from the Spark Cafe. Teens snap selfies posting with holiday lights, while restaurants serve endless culinary delights. It's a Bentonville tradition, a favorite event, a night spent together, precious time well spent. From our family to yours, please enjoy the bright lights. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
We'll be back next week with more of our interview with Steuart Walton. You can re-watch this episode on our Facebook page or at downtownbentonville.org. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, produced by the community nonprofit Downtown Bentonville, Inc. Our team works year-round to build and promote a welcoming and lively downtown Bentonville through experiences, education, and storytelling. Last year, as events were put on hold in our region, Downtown Bentonville, Inc. launched Downtown Media, a community-supported, community-driven storytelling platform. You can see our videos on social media, before movies at Skylight, and right here on KNWA. If you would like to learn more about DBI and Downtown Media, or be featured in one of our storytelling projects, or support us in an upcoming year, please visit downtownbentonville.org.